is here tonight, and she probably doesn't remember this as I remember it, but we not only had to wait till Christmas morning, but we had to eat our oatmeal first. Have you ever tried to eat oatmeal? You know, it's like trying to whistle when you're eating crackers. You cannot swallow this stuff when you're excited about opening presents. So there was a little torture involved somehow. I don't know. It's part of the tradition. Actually, it's wonderful to have Mom here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my childhood and Dad, who's going to heaven now. But I want Mom just to be happy. This is only a couple of years into this, and I know Christmas can be a tough time for her, but these are all your friends, Mom. Please stand and give my mom a nice hand. Stand, Mom. You look pretty, and if you have something to say, just let me know. Which she will do. Okay, this is for the kids. This is a poem written by Ken Nesbitt, who writes children's books. I thought this was cute. Okay, listen up, kids. This is a letter from a child. Dear Santa, this Christmas my list is quite small. In fact, I need practically nothing at all. My list is so short and so easy to read because there's just one thing that I actually need. A reindeer for Christmas is all I require. A reindeer, of course, who is an excellent flyer. I don't really care if it's Dasher or Dancer. I'm okay with Cupid or Comet or Prancer. Please don't think I'm greedy. I only want one. You won't even miss him, and I'll have so much fun. I promise to feed him and treat him just right and take him out flying around every night. You see, I'm not selfish. So for my surprise, this Christmas, please bring me a reindeer that flies. But if my request is a bit much for you, I guess just an iPad will have to do. You know, I found this really interesting. I hope you take a few minutes to do this, but I did a little Google search and I was looking at gifts, like top 10 presents over the last decades. 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s, and all the way back. And of course, you know what some of the top 10 all-time ones are.
Hoverboard.
How many of you remember, you ladies, you girls remember Cabbage Patch dolls? Remember Nintendos? Stephen remembers Nintendos, and I remember he and his mother, he was, I'm not going to say he was ever a stubborn child, but he had in his mind that he knew how to spell that, and that's the gift that he wanted. And he was trying to tell his mom how to spell it, and she said, no, Stephen, it starts with N. You don't spell, and he said, no, it doesn't start with N. And she said, no, it does. And he said, Mom, pronounce it. Nintendo. It starts with an I. Something like that. I want to talk to you about maybe from some memories. One of the things that I noticed in looking at top 10 gifts going back decade by decade is I noticed something interesting. I think that was probably an expected outcome. But what I noticed is, first of all, the top 10 gifts from 2015, I thought this was interesting. The top 10 gifts for 2015, children and all included, all of them are electronic but one. Can anybody guess what the top 10 gift is that is not electronic for 2015? A pet. Now, if you want a pet, I suggest that you wait till January, because there's going to be a lot of them on Craigslist really cheap. And if you're in the rug or flooring or carpet sales, you'll do really well in February. I want want to talk to you tonight for just a few moments about homemade Christmas. I want to change my mind. I want to apologize a bit. And Mom is here and might have heard me say this before, but I used to think this was really funny. I've realized something as I look at this a little deeper, and that is, I used to say, and I would be kidding when I said it, and I thought it was really funny, and I would say, I always knew around our house when it was getting close to Christmas time, because either in the attic workshop where Dad had a shop or in the garage, I started to smell spray paint and sawdust, and because Dad was working on something. Spray paint because he was restoring a bicycle. Now, what I wanted was a new bike because they pedaled easier. What Dad wanted to do was restore an old bike. So that's why you would smell spray paint and all of that. Now, there's an interesting little point I want you to get. Father and son. The son, in this case me, I placed more value on something new at that time. Dad placed more value on something old that was restored. Now I understand that, which means I guess that I'm old. But I used to think that maybe we did that because we were poor. After all, I didn't know the definition of poor. It's all relative, I guess, but I knew that Dad and Mom were hardworking young pioneer pastors who were planting a church in Flagstaff and who were working extra jobs and keeping ends meeting, and we always had what we needed. But I assumed, I guess I don't get a new bike or whatever because we don't have the money. I didn't really understand the value of a homemade gift, something with touch and love and involvement from Dad, like I do now. So I started thinking about homemade gifts. Then, a couple of weeks ago, my son Stephen contacted me and he said, Dad, what do you think about this? I'd like for you to help me with something. Let's go up to Grandpa's shop, because I've kind of left it with his saws and his tools just like it was. And I have lots of memories working with stuff there with him. And he had a table saw and jigsaw and all kinds of saws and tools. And so Stephen said, I want to build something for my kids, our grandkids, and I want you to help me build something for them. And so I said, I'd love to. So we just had the greatest time, just finished that up last night. And I did a lot of thinking, not only nostalgically and really enjoying the process of that, but I also thought about the value of homemade gifts. Now, if you've already bought gifts at the store, that's cool, and I've done that too. But I have a name for part of the process. Please don't let this sound cynical, but I call it repulsive retail. It is this last-minute rush by department stores who import junk from all over the world to fill the aisles with stuff that people can run through with their hair on fire and grab something for whoever they got to buy a gift for, and somehow that loses some of its touch. There's something more valuable, maybe not even monetarily, but more valuable about a gift that is made or restored or given that has heritage and history. Let me talk to you for just a minute about the original Christmas way back when, and I went as far back as I could go, and I want to show you a couple of pictures. This is a picture from Bethlehem. And in Bethlehem, about 2 miles or so from Jerusalem, this is a picture of the Church of the Nativity. Now, the interesting thing about this is more than two things, but the two things interesting are that it is the oldest church in the world. This is a church that was built at the end of the 3rd century. And it was built so early in history because When Constantine, the Roman emperor, in about 300 AD, became emperor of Rome, and of course, as you know, he was pagan, he was a sun worshiper, and when he converted to Christianity with an experience that he had with God, his mother's name was Helena. And he sent Helena to Israel because at that time, no one was treasuring any of the places or artifacts of Christ and his memory, and the place of his birth, of his resurrection, his crucifixion. And so they were just places that were taken for granted, and they were mistreated, and no one cared, and conquering armies would come and go. And so Constantine sent his mother to Israel with an unlimited checkbook and said, find and locate the valuable spots in the life of Jesus and buy them, and we'll keep them for Christianity, and we'll build something there to commemorate that. So now, if you go there, and I've been there many times, right over there to the right in the shade is a good place to sit and rest while a lot of the group goes through, because it takes a long time. And I've been there a lot of times, and I always enjoy it. But if you've got 100 people you take there, and they're taking their time with the guides and all, I usually sit and talk to some friends that sell little things there this is Manger Square. This picture is taken from what you heard of as Manger Square. You'll see it on the news television tonight because there will be live services going on there. But I want to point out something to you interesting here. The right-hand side of the building with the spires was added many centuries later. It's about 1,000 years old itself. But the original part is the part in the far back. See where the tall black-looking window opening is? And then below it, look in the deepest part of the shadows where the building insets. Look down to the inset on the right. And on the inset on the right, in fact, I'll help you out here because I have a laser. If it works, is my laser working? My laser isn't working. So much for the laser. I wanted to show you this, though. It's really important. In the shadows in the bottom part there to the left, do you see the dark place where there is a door? Well, let me give you the scale of this. That's the original part of the church built in the 3rd century, early 4th century. And it's only about, there it is. That's a close-up view of what I was pointing out. And that door is less than 4 feet tall. So if I were to show you a picture of someone, there it is, that gives you the scale. Now here's the story. Were people just that small in the 3rd century? No. Here's the story. This is the spot that was built right over the cave that we normally call the manger. And typically in a Christmas play, we'll build a little wooden structure and call it a manger. A manger just means a place where animals are fed. So the shepherds in those days used limestone caves that are replete in that part of the country. They're everywhere. You can go to original ones where they still keep sheep. So the one where they thought Jesus to be born, they built this little church over. In the 3rd century, it was tiny. But this door is that short because the land was so wild and invading armies were coming through constantly, and there was so much warfare over that region that they built that door that short for safety. Because in the days of early warfare, where the greatest advantage an army had, the greatest weapon you could have, especially if you were an army that had been on foot, was to have horses. Can you imagine how little chance you had to defend yourself if horses could rush you? And so, as purely as a safety measure, the door on the Church of the Nativity original was built less than 4 feet tall. Why? So that you couldn't rush that building on horseback. You had to lower yourself like this and come through. Well, can you imagine how easy it is on the other side of that door if there is an invading troop? Can you imagine how much easier it is to defend the church if you're on the inside, if the door is only 3.5 feet tall? And it doesn't matter how armor-plated someone is, they got to get down almost on their knees to crawl through that door. And it's really easy to defend yourself against an invader when he has to come through the door on his knees. Yeah. But do you see the spiritual importance of this as well? Jesus said before this church was ever built, but in his ministry time, Jesus said,
wide is the gate that leads to destruction. It's easy, but narrow